As I trudged through Afghanistan's Maizan River Valley on what would be my final combat patrol, I stopped for a second to catch my breath before scaling an earthen embankment. I had to keep my guys out of the riverbed where we were easy targets and off the roads where locals like to bury bombs. They didn't usually like placing IEDs in and around their homes. So to hell with the roads, I thought. We took the safest route through their fields and farms. None of us wanted to be the latest casualty in a forgotten war, and no one was trying to be a hero, especially on our last mission. I took a breath and looked at the fields ahead. An acre of red poppies danced playfully in the breeze, and the craggy mountains cast a looming shadow over some mud-walled homes ahead. I marveled as the Afghan cliffs slowly swallowed the most beautiful sunset I'd ever seen. It'd be kind of pretty if it weren't for all those shitty houses. The river valley was a light show of colors. It was littered with crude, mud-walled homes, dirt roads, and the scars of centuries of war. I was captivated and sick of it. I miss my home, my wife, and my pug Roxy. I miss having a beer after work. My gut wrenched over a decision that I knew I had to make, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to say goodbye and hang up my boots and say goodbye to life in the infantry. After a 7-year love-hate relationship with the Army, most of which was spent overseas, I realized that I loved seeing the world, the camaraderie, the experience of serving. But I had long since grown weary of the caveats. Oh, come on. So I was at the end of my enlistment, and I had to choose. Re-up or get out. I wanted to stay in, but I was tired of saying goodbye to my wife, tired of keeping my family at a distance, and I was tired of keeping a growing list, or a guilty tab on my growing list of dead friends. I longed for a normal life, and even though I didn't have any idea what the hell that even meant, I just knew that it had to be better than all this. But on the other hand, I loved what I did. Training soldiers, leading them through combat. It was the most rewarding experience of my life. I love the guys with whom I served like a family, and being a grunt, it was all I'd known since I was 19. I wondered if I should just accept the fact that this was my life. I watched my guys following in formation. It had taken countless hours of training and a year at war to turn what was once a gaggle fuck of misfits and teenagers into an effective fighting force. I smiled proudly and kept walking. As I stepped, I twisted my ankle and slipped. Gravity jerked my body one way and sent the 90 pounds of gear I was wearing violently in the opposite direction. I sailed to the ground like a bag of bricks. "You all right?" My platoon sergeant half giggled through my radio. "This shit'll buff out," I answered, still spitting out pieces of Afghanistan. "Miss this? Shit. Let me count the ways." I dusted myself off, and I kept moving. I reached the edge of the Scarlet Morphine Farm and climbed a wall to the next one. It too was filled with poppies planted in neat rows, and as I climbed, my mind wandered back to scaling walls while fighting house to house in southern Baghdad a few years back. It wasn't anything like this. Back then, we'd quickly climb crude walls, rush into half-ruined homes, and race to the rooftop, where entire neighborhoods would erupt into gunfire. My heart would race as I clutched my rifle's grip, my eyes and sights racing frantically through the haze of incoming lead and the confusion of trying to tell who was trying to kill us and who was just trying not to get shot. I thought of the adrenal rush as bullets sang just overhead, that carnivorous dread that gnawed at our sanity, and how we fought through it arrogantly. I thought of the dozen guys that didn't make it home, the couple dozen more who were broken, blown up, shot. I remembered how the rest of us were left to carry on and fight in their absence. And I remembered how we tried to pick up the pieces of our lives when we went home. The dead? They're the lucky ones. I was still coming to terms with my first homecoming from war, on the eve of leaving Afghanistan. I relived old firefights by night and avoided them by day. I was so neurotic about my guys' safety because I was tired of seeing young Americans die on forgotten battlefields in wars that no one back home gave a shit about anymore. Screw this, I thought. I led my squad through the second poppy field and onto a small dirt road that was within eyesight of our mountain home. After a year spent battling the crags and my convictions, I walked the last few painful, muddy steps with my chin up because I knew that at least this time, everything was different. I mean, I knew that I was still dealing with some old demons, but at least I managed to keep my shit together. I had trained and led my guys through 12 months of combat, and this time, I was bringing all of them home alive. Most of them were still in one piece. I did my job, and I was fucking proud. I looked at the faces of my guys and counted them as they walked through the concertina wire before keying my radio for the very last time. Hey, 2-6, 2-3, we're 100%. Roger that, 2-3. Welcome home. I stepped in our sandbagged outpost and I smiled proudly. The next day, I again counted my guys as they boarded a CH-47 helicopter. It was our ride out of the bomb-laden mountains and back to Camp Disneyland, otherwise known as Kandahar Airfield, or CAF. CAF was our next stop on our way back home to Germany, where we were stationed. I remembered my first awkward homecoming, and I wondered how long it would take to adjust this time. I closed my eyes and listened to that helicopter just clamber through the desert dawn. And I thought of red poppies. Later that night, a few of us went out to explore our interim home. Compared to our forsaken outpost, CAF was a 5-star resort, and we fully intended to enjoy ourselves. We bought cigars and pizza. We reminisced about humping our gear over mountains, getting rained on, eating expired MREs, all while the assholes stationed on CAF had such plush living conditions. This Leviathan airbase had USO shows, contractor-run dining facilities, and even a salsa night on the boardwalk, an actual fucking boardwalk that was lined with shops and restaurants. Afghanistan. Individual experiences may vary. Our 12 months there had truly sucked, but they had paled in comparison to the action I'd seen in Iraq a few years back. I remembered burned homes, the dead kids, my friends losing limbs. And I felt so stupid for complaining. I'm just happy we got everybody here, I said, and chewed pepperoni pizza in silence for several minutes. A greasy pizza and a Coke? Shit, I was in heaven. And that's when my platoon sergeant's phone rang. It was one of the guys in our platoon. I could hear his panicked voice. "It's Spaulding," the voice said. "Spaulding's been shot." What, shot? That didn't make any sense. We were miles away from anything sharp and on the eve of going home. We scrambled to our feet and out the door, clutching our rifles as we ran, and my heart raced. Two of us stepped into the road and tried to flag down a passing bus. It wouldn't stop, so we raised our rifles. Then it stopped. All I managed to hear, my platoon sergeant took a deep breath, was that Spaulding's been shot. And that Baker did it. Baker? He was another guy in our platoon and a close friend of Spaulding. None of this added up. But he said something about they were playing. His face cringed. And that Baker, he shot him in the head. We got to the combat support hospital exactly as the Humvee arrived that was carrying our wounded soldier, Riley Spaulding. His face was covered in blood-drenched gauze, but I could see that he'd suffered a point-blank gunshot wound to his forehead. My mind raced with questions, but the reasons why was still fuzzy. Only the trauma was clear. I watched 4 corpsmen carry Riley Spaulding onto a hospital bed and quickly wheel him inside. We followed closely. As they pushed the gurney through a doorway, a bloody bandage fell from his face. He's not going to make it, I thought. We watched the frantic doctors do their damnedest, but it was no use. It was too late. I looked at the hole in Riley's forehead. It was too much. God damn it. I stuck around to fill out the paperwork. "What the fuck, Spaulding?" I looked at his vacant eyes, choked back tears, and signed my name, officiating his death. He was a lovable goof, like a little brother. And now he was dead. A week later, the rest of us were back in Germany. We landed at Ramstein Air Base near Frankfurt, and then loaded buses on our way back to Vilseck, where our lives that were interrupted a year prior had left off. I stared out the bus window at the thick green pines and rain-soaked Autobahn. I didn't know what to think about the carefree civilians that were driving right beside us. They were completely oblivious. It was so odd not to worry about bombs on the road. And it was weird to be so close to home because suddenly it wasn't such a vague concept. I thought of what it was like going home last time, and I shuddered. I wondered what it would be like now. This time, everything was different. I thought of Riley Spaulding. We were less than an hour away. Thank you.
It's Brent Wingfield. We're so pleased to have him on our VAMP stage.